Yeah, I'm very glad to talk after Christina, because my presentation is very similar under some respect. So you will tell me if the slides are going on good, because sometimes the PowerPoint makes problems with the Mac and so on.
Well, Mikael's on the job there, so he'll let you know.
So do you see the title now?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Okay. So it's very good, very great joy to be here, to be part of this attempt to dream and assert together the unification, not only of Europe, of course, but of all nations, in order to restore the hierarchical plan and order on Earth. Despite all that is happening now in the worlds of appearance, as part of the new group of observers, we are the subjective prototype for the future hierarchical humanity. As such, we are expected to discriminate and transform the subjective, subtle causes of the past and present conflicts into a harmonic system, not only harmonious, but a harmonic from the science of harmonics by Pythagoras. A harmonic system of understanding and solutions in order to prepare the basis of the Aquarian brotherhood. As we know, brotherhood is the main idea of the water-bearer age, whose realization in the human kingdom is indicated for its last decade in 1,400 years. So we are not in a hurry, but we are in a hurry. So let's consider how Europe, one of the 5 active centers of our planetary logos, can serve the idea of universal brotherhood by its essence and systemic function that is in the planetary system. First, we will consider the myth of the entity called Europe, as Christina was mentioning, because as we know, symbols reveal the true or real nature of things, legends and myths. So the first written traces of the myth of Europa, I will pronounce not in English idiom, but as it is written, Europa. The myth of Europa dates back to the times of Homer and Hesiod, around the 8th century BC. In the Iliad, Zeus evokes among his many loves also the one with Europa, while in the Theogony, Hesiod mentions Europa, daughter of Thetis, one of the sea deities, wife to Oceanus. The most consolidated myth tells of Princess Europa, daughter of the Phoenician king Agenor, who, having gone down to the sea with her maids, met a white bull of such a great beauty and meekness that she desired to ride him. The bull, however, immediately rushed across the sea, carrying the girl with him. The race of the white bull that had kidnapped Europa ended on the island of Crete, where Zeus assumed the form of an eagle, and with her begat 3 children. The myth continues by narrating that the brothers of Europa set off in various directions to look for their sister. In particular, one of these, Cadmus, after various vicissitudes, married Harmony, daughter of Aphrodite and Ares, that are Venus and Mars. It was on that occasion and it was at the very last time that all the gods left Olympus and came down to earth to join the wedding feast of a mortal. Is this the allegory for the beginning of a new phase, of a new civilization and sub-race, the Greek-Roman one, as Christina was mentioning, Greece at the crossroad in the middle way between East and West? In the myth of Europa, Zeus took the white bolt into the sky, thus giving birth to the constellation of the bull, Taurus. In general, the myth represents a movement of civilization from east to west, and the name Europe, given to the Western territories, is the seal of this movement. The Bovid and moon cults, veiled by the myth of Europa, were thus transmitted through migrations from the Middle East and Africa to Greece. The bull's horns have the same shape as the crescent moon, and the two symbols were connected in religious rites. Not only astrologically, the moon, mother of the form that veils the inner light, is at its greatest power, or exalted in the sign of Taurus. The transmission of the myth of Europa in the Middle Ages was entrusted to Ovid's Metamorphoses, and then from the 15th century, the Christianized version of the moralized Ovid spread, according to which Europa was the human soul and the bull represented the Christ, who redeems it by transporting it from earth to paradise. In esoteric terms, the myth can be seen as the initiatory destiny of the human soul, born from animality, but gradually freeing itself from it through the conflicts between its earthly nature and its divine nature. The latter, the divine nature, through the sacrifice of the former, develops and triumphs. So Taurus and the fourth ray seem to dominate the qualities of this myth, and even the eagle god recalls the opposite sign of Scorpio, associated with our fourth human hierarchy and the fourth ray, Mercury. The continent of Europe to be a fourth ray planetary center or a planetary ajna center at the soul, at the soul level or at the personality level, rather than a second ray heart center, see the 12 stars of its banner, are plausible hypotheses. Hence, its importance for the current fifth Aryan race, as well as for the new group of world servers, indicated as forms of the planetary Ajna center. And the new group of world servers is governed precisely by the sign Taurus. As esoteric astrologers know, Taurus, Pluto, and Earth, through our planetary head center, Shambhala, are of primary importance today. There is at this time, owing to the influx of the Shambhala force, the establishing of a peculiar relation or alignment between the constellation Taurus. Is there anybody with the microphone on? Thank you. between the constellation Taurus, with its own specific alignment with the Pleiades, which are Taurus, and the Great Bear, the planet Pluto, first ray, and our Earth, third ray. This produces much of the present world difficulty, and one which the modern astrologer would do well to consider. It constitutes a major cosmic triangle at this time, conditioning much that is now happening. So it was written last century, but still going on. This Shambhala force is that which fans or intensifies the light by the removal of obstructions and proceeds from far distant places, pouring through the eye of illumination into those spheres of influence upon the sorrowful planet, the Earth, impelling the ball upon its onward rush. So speaks the old commentary. The import of this is that the energy of will newly released by Sanat Kumara upon our planet emanates via the head center of the planetary logos from the Great Bear. It is stepped down in vibration via one of the Pleiades, hence its influence upon matter, and hence also its pronounced Taurian effects upon humanity, and so enters into the solar system. It is there absorbed by that major center of our planetary life, to which we give the name Shambhala. Its effect is necessarily twofold. It produces in certain nations, races, and individuals a welling up of the self-will, or of the will to power, which is characteristic of the developed lower nature, the personality aspect of integrated selfhood. It produces, through less readily, a stimulation of the will to serve the plan, as it is grasped by the word aspirants, the word disciples, and initiates. Thus are the purposes of deity materialized. So let's think about when Pluto, the first ray destroyer of obsolete forms, will be again in Taurus as a crucial and fundamental period for Europe. And it will be from 2096 to 2128, a period which holds in itself the date of the effective beginning, according to the Tibetan master, of the age of Aquarius in 2117. Or let's think about, as it was said, now Pluto entering Aquarius for the next 19 years, the sign which rules the great planetary heart center, the hierarchy, square Taurus. How it will stimulate the emergence of new light. The last time Pluto was in Taurus was from 1852 to 1883, years which saw not only important political upheavals and restorations. By the way, the last incarnation of my Italian nation was in 1861, with Pluto, the moon, and Mars in Taurus, but also the beginning of the first dispensation of the teaching through Madame Blavatsky. Is Europe that Taurine eye of revelation, source of light through knowledge, which will serve by holding its mind steady in the light, in the clear vision of the one humanity? Among the 5 outlets for the energy of Shambhala and hierarchy, Europe contains Geneva, the heart center, and London, the plausible thought center. We are told that these two centers, heart and throat, once fused and in harmony, caused the awakening of the Ajna center, guided by the heart in the head or by the soul, by Buddhi Manas in Sanskrit. The awakening of New York under the command of Darjeeling, or at a higher level of the Ajna Center, Europe. Also interesting is that you will find all these things, dense things in the document, so you can ponder later on these concepts. Also interesting is the symmetry between Europe as the great Ajna center, which contains the heart center Geneva, and Asia, supposed, as we shall see, as a planetary heart center, which contains the Ajna center Darjeeling. An Ajna between the five on the spine, the five centers on the spine, but a head center for its first ray. This is Darjeeling. Another suggestion, the Ajna center with its 96 petals is the synthesis of the lower centers, and with the evolution from being the seat of the multiple points of view, it becomes the operative center of the soul, which looks into the three worlds, serving the unitary purpose. Furthermore, the formula for the fifth Aryan race indicated by the teachings, which marries well with the multifaceted nature of the European nations, is precisely unity in diversity, the European motto. And when the multiple points of view converge in a harmonic system of perspectives at the service of the one purpose, universal brotherhood, the eye is open and all is light. This is the motto of Europe. Europe is therefore united, and united must remain, one in diversity. May it spread peace in the world. May it always reign in Europe faith, justice, and the freedom of peoples in a larger homeland. Citizens, may Europe flourish. A great war calls you. Let the stars connect us, golden emblem of the firmament. Another interesting fact is the etymological comparison, as Christina mentioned, of the terms Europe and Asia, which seem to stand for West and East. They would have been introduced by the Phoenicians, who, spreading from Syria into the Mediterranean basin, would have generically indicated as West all the countries subsequently discovered up to the Strait of Gibraltar, as opposed to Asia, a name that was also derived from a Semitic word meaning East. However, for both names, the Greek origin is not excluded. Europe and Asia already occur in Hesiod theogony as sons of Oceanus and Tethys, but without any geographical reference being made. However, initially the name Europe was given to central Greece, later extended to all of Greece, and from 500 BC, it was applied to all lands to the north of it. Here we propose two other etymological hypotheses for Europe. The first intends the name Europe as composed of two Greek roots, eu, which means large, great, benevolent, and op, the root of seeing, vision, with the possible meaning of broad face or broad gaze, which was a typical attribute of the full moon associated with the Great Mother and the sacred cow. While the second annexes to eu the term raw, to flow, to stream, therefore well watered, with an allusion to the ancient fertility rites. After this symbolic trip and introduction, we therefore present in Europe and from Europe to the whole world the broad gaze or vision of a harmonic system of nations, in order to carve the fertile paths towards the Aquarian brotherhood, to the systemic right relationships or planetary group consciousness. The metric of the harmonic system of nations is a reflection of the 13749 hierarchical model to give a right form to the idea of an international order and organism. The triple triad, whose permutations builds the 6 with the center, the 7. The teaching tells us that humanity as a planetary center is a collective unity constituted by and organized into 7 main races and human types, and many ethnic groups and peoples, distributed over 7 continents, of which 5 are awakened or active as planetary centers. These parts or organs of the 4th human kingdom are driven by the evolutionary law, despite the prevailing separativeness, to relate to one another through increasingly comprehensive systems towards organic globality. And today, at the dawn of the Aquarian era, we can affirm that from isolated and local units, we have arrived to a potentially single interactive community. As an example, in its either vicious or virtuous use, the technological revolution of internet clearly proves this unified and global field. Right now, mainly on an instinctive level of emotions and thoughts, but in due course also on an ever higher and more conscious level. At present, mankind still needs the law of pain to recognize our unified field and oneness, namely conflicts, in order to make the 4th principle of harmony as our triumphant destiny. We move seemingly slowly and yet at an accelerated pace towards the ideal of right human relationships, which will in due time precipitate the idea of brotherhood. The forms through which these new and impending ideas must take shape and manifest have yet to be created, and that takes time, for they are built by the power of thought and due process of educating the public consciousness until that consciousness becomes confirmed conviction and demonstrate as an immovable public opinion. Fear, foreboding, and concern are but temporary and will give place to that order, rhythmic imposition of the needed idealism, which will be applied eventually by love, motivated by wisdom, in cooperation with intelligence. All will be actuated by a dynamic, not a passive will to good. In the Destiny of the Nations, we also read, the major ideas in the world today fall into 5 categories. And the last one is the idea of a spiritual hierarchy, which will govern the people throughout the world and will embody in itself the best elements of the monarchical, the democratic, the totalitarian, and the communistic regimes. Most of these groups of ideologies have latent in them much beauty, strength, and wisdom, and also a profound and valuable contribution to make to the whole. Each will eventually see its contribution embodied under the control of the hierarchy of the lords of compassion and the masters of the wisdom. The restoration of the ancient Atlantean control by the spiritual forces is still in the future, but the Aquarian age will see the restitution of this inner and spiritual guidance on a higher turn of the spiral. So, having fixed the vision for the future, let us now consider the fundamental role of the nations to build consciously the hierarchical one humanity. So nations are presented by the esoteric teaching as a temporary manifestation of human races and sub-races, those septenary centers of the 4th human hierarchy. They are actual living, magnetic, and conscious collective units, equipped with a more or less manifested soul or higher nature, a more or less integrated personality, and a body of territorial expression. So also Europe as a territory is only the personality aspect of Europe, but Europe as a soul is a different being. So here we know from Destiny of the Nations, there are signs, rays, and mottos indicated by decay. Here I outline the 3 signs, Aquarius, Taurus, and Pisces, rulers of the 3 planetary centers, the heart center hierarchy by Aquarius, the Ajna center, the new group of world servers, ruled by Taurus, and the 4th center, humanity, ruled by Pisces. Okay, we go on because the time is tired. Okay. We know that the soul ray must be evoked into an increased functioning activity by the new group of world servers, the soul ray of nations. For this is one of their main objectives and tasks. This is from Initiation of Human and Solar quote. Okay. And this coming age will be as predominantly the age of group interplay, group idealism, and group consciousness, as the Piscean age has been one of personality unfoldment and emphasis, personality focus, and personality consciousness. So the isolated units of the one humanity, the nations, must today rise to the international group interplay, idealism, and consciousness, to their planetary or spiritual function, to ensure that the global organism is safe and sound at the service of evolution. Okay, we skip this. You are going to find in the writings, in the text. So the realization of these concepts of interplay, international reality, when intelligently developed and wisely handled, will lead to right human relations. Economic stability is a quote from Externalization of Hierarchy. So economic stability based on the spirit of sharing and to a fresh orientation of man to man, of nation to nation, and of all to that supreme power to which we give the name God. Okay, humanity itself must be the goal of interest and effort, and not any particular nation or empire. All this has to be wrought out in a practical, realistic manner, divorced from visionary, mystical, and impractical dreams. And all that is done must be founded on one basic recognition: human brotherhood, expressing itself in right human relations. A quote from Race and Initiations, 122. Okay. So the harmonic system of nations, or the esoteric order of the nations, united in the name of the common good, is certainly one of the most urgent ideals to be nourished and vitalized here and now, consciously altogether, through the projection of the most beautiful vision of the one humanity. And we do it with the help and because of our subjective or soul meditation, through our creative imagination, the medium of the higher mind, to unite the world of ideas and ideal formulas with that of the forms of the new culture and civilization. So every nation which has sufficiently integrated its personality, that is, stabilized its individuality with respect to the planetary community, will progressively know its potential and possibilities, and the astrological key and their constituent rays, as well as the examination of the virtues and defects of their peoples, their talents and fragility, can illuminate the unitary path to follow, converging towards the one in function of the planetary common good. In particular, here are presented three hypotheses of a right sorting or harmonic arrangement of the system of nations according to the 49 metrics of ray energy combinations or functions, the model of hierarchical organization of life and of its agents or builders. According to this view, this Pythagorean lambdoma, or 7 times 7 matrix ruled by the 7 rays of life, is a scientific and magic way to square the circle of any idea. And in particular here, of the evolutionary plan of the hierarchical humanity, a matrix of 49 planetary goals or energy vortices as a first systemic formulation of its buddhic energies or impulses onto the causal and fiery world of manasic thought, therein fixing its living 7 main centers or goals taken from the teachings along the central diagonal and 42 minor ones. The 49 centers or fires of Brahma, of any celestial idea, so this is the idea of a plan, have to be activated by group soul attestation and meditation. And in this systemic perspective, through their 49 relevant functions and ideal formulas that the hearts and minds or nations have to translate in a harmonic action that is, into a spiritual coordinated cooperation for the common good. The plan or the planetary order or any idea is a living entity, a substantial energy, and an energetic substance, which requires a harmonic human system of relationships, first to be defined and then realized in the three words, in order to bring about the main idea of brotherhood. In the following three hypotheses, the central diagonal, identified with the 7 main centers of the 4th human hierarchy on Earth, is filled according to 3 different perspectives, while the 42 subsidiary boxes are by the nations, placed here according to their indicated soul and personality race. It will be interesting to fill all the 42 boxes when the Tibetan will give us, or any other master will give us the race of the nations. The 3 perspectives see the 7-fold central axis identified according to the 3 aspects of spirit, consciousness, substance, as esoteric science teaches us. So the first hypothesis sees in the diagonal the continents, indicated as the substantial form of the 7 planetary centers. And as Christina read, they are indicated as the 5 major endocrine glands in correspondence. They are related to 5 centers. And we go fast here. The second hypothesis is in a diagonal, the consciousness aspect of the 7 centers of the 4th human hierarchy is represented by the 7 ray groups of initiates operating through our higher nature, or the 7 egoic groups on monastic level. They were, are, and will educate and initiate their affiliated souls in the indicated 7+7 occult schools, as written in letters of occult meditation, intended as cradles of the initiatory seeds of the future culture and humanity. And look, in Europe, we have the 2nd ray main and preparatory schools in Ireland or Scotland and Wales. We have the 1st ray future Greece preparatory 1st ray school. We have Italy and Southern France as the 3rd ray schools. And we have Sweden and Russia as the 5th ray schools. So much of these consciousness aspects are in around or in Europe. And it is written that only those nations which originally had the training schools for the mysteries, with the exceptions, with 3 exceptions, will be again during the earlier stages permitted national schools. These sections are Great Britain, Canada, and the United States, Australia. So here are the plausible rays, as I said, and Japan and Western China, the 4th ray. And the 3rd hypothesis sees the spirit. The 3rd hypothesis is sacred to the spirit aspect or life aspect, and would be concerned with the 5 planetary inlets, plus the 2 still hidden, indicated in the teachings as the 5 main centers of the present 5th root race of humanity, corresponding to 5 key cities through which hierarchy and Shambhala distribute their energies. 5 there are today in the body of him in whom we live and move and have our being. 5 focal points of spiritual energy, expressing themselves through 5 awakened centers in that body. These 5 are Geneva, for the European continent, as Philip was presenting, London, the British Commonwealth of Nations, New York for the American continent, Darjeeling, Central and Western Asia, Tokyo for the Far East. So we go on. Also, Africa and Australia will host the other 2 centers. And we know that through these 5 inlets, the energy of the 5 rays pours forth. Okay, the 5 cities, which are the exoteric expression of the esoteric center of force, and through which the hierarchy and Shambhala are seeking to work, are the correspondence in the planetary body to the 4 centers up the spine and the Ajna center in the body of humanity and of individual man. Okay.
Antonella, sorry to interrupt. You're going over time now.
Yeah. Okay, I have almost 2 minutes.
Oh,
Can I finish? Okay. Anyway, the attribution are mere working hypotheses, and it would be beautiful to constitute one day a study group to examine and inquire into that. Okay. So just to finish, the mission of true humanity is to learn intelligent love or the coordinated collaboration for a common purpose. Another way of defining the hierarchical order, the systemic relations. And in a treatise of cosmic fire, it is written, the immediate objective of the human kingdom is consciously to establish systemic relations and be actively and consciously part of group work. Okay. I leave this, and just I finish with this wonderful Shakespearean, heaven doth with us as we with torches do, not light them for themselves. For if our virtues did not go forth of us, 'twere all alike as if we had them not.